So instead of linking our chart here, I'm just going to delete this chart. I'm also going to delete this text so that we go back to kind of our blank slide. I'm going to delete the table that we have here. Instead of building our charts and graphs off of the pivot table, what I often will do is I will build them in a separate sheet. And so we have our pivot table here. I have the data that I want to look at. I can copy my data here, and we're going to go Control C. Actually, I'm going to hit Escape there. I'm going to make sure that I copy the column headers as well. Control C, and then I'm going to go to my sheet 15 here and copy in the data. And it automatically does brings over the formatting as well. Now what I'm going to do is highlight these data, and I'm going to say here Insert Charts, and we wanted to do a bar chart. And we're going to do a stacked 100% bar chart. So here is our chart, and we're going to say here gender by job title. And I'm going to add in, so we're going to go to the plus, I'm going to add in my data labels here, just like that. And let's see, what else do we want to do here? Let's make it a little more fancy, so we'll make it look like something like this. That doesn't have our percentages on it. Let's see. So you can see you can get super fancy with your charts and graphs. On this one, let's just keep it simple, and we'll go with this. On our data labels, we're going to do more options, and that's fine. We can just leave it as is. So we're going to take this chart. I'm going to go to Format, Shape Outline. I'm not going to have an outline on it. It just makes it easier. I think it looks a little cleaner in the PowerPoint. We're going to Control C, copy that in. So I now have formatted this to the way that I want it to look in the PowerPoint. And actually, because our PowerPoint theme is orange, kind of brownish colors, I'm going to change these as well. So we're going to come here and go to Format and Shape Fill. So we're going to do orange here, and let's see here, maybe a gray or something. We'll go with that for now. Control C. What I'm going to do instead, I'm going to paste that in, and I'm going to paste it as a picture. And so now this is a picture, so when I go back and if I modify any of my data, then it doesn't modify. The other option, we're going to delete this. 1 second. While my PowerPoint shuts down and restarts. Let's see. We're going to use this. Okay. So, sorry about the technical difficulties. Let's resave this real quick. We're going to do that. Yes, replace it. We'll do 1. Okay. All right. Welcome back. So, sorry about the technical difficulties. Again, if you want to, you can go back and we can Control Z, and now we're back to our original chart and graph, and we can copy and paste this in. So we'll do Control V, and it will automatically update the graphics and the colors. So let's keep it as is with the red and the orange there, and we will put this over here. So we'll come up with our kind of text and things a little bit later, but let's do our next graph. So we're gonna save this again so we don't have any more technical difficulties, and we're gonna come back to our pivot table, and let's do age by performance. So we're gonna get rid of our job title, we're gonna get rid of our gender, we're gonna get rid of our count of employee number. And what we're going to do, we're going to put in our most recent performance rating into the columns, so 1 through 5 again, and then we're going to put in age into our rows. And you can see the rows there, and then we're going to go up and we're going to grab ID number again, we're going to put it into values and change that to count once again. And you can see how this shakes out. One thing that I want to show you again on PowerPoint is that, you know, if you were to graph all of this information, so let's just see what that would look like as we drag all the way down, and let's say we wanted to put that into I don't know, a bar chart. We could say insert and chart and column. It's pretty hard to read, right? And it doesn't make much sense. So one thing that we can do in pivot tables is that we can group data. And so all you have to do is highlight the data that you want to group. So in this case, we're going to group our different ages. So I'm going to group 22 to 30. Then I'm going to right click and I'm going to say group here. And it will say group 1, and then it will have all the different ages there. I'm going to call this 22 to 30. Enter. You'll also see that you have 2 different age. This has created a new field for us, which is age 2. So what I'm going to do is take out our old age, and now we're just going to use age 2. And you can see that it's summed up our 22 to 30s across this row. So I'm going to do the same thing, 31 to 40, right click, group, call this group 31 to 40. Same for these, right click, group 41 to 50. Once again, 51 to 60. And we're going to call this group 61 plus. Now what we can do is we can Control C, copy this over. We're going to put this in our same sheet, and we're just going to build down as we go. And now we can build a graph based on these data here. So we're going to go to Insert. We're going to go to, let's see, let's do a stacked column to 100% here. And this is saying we're going to do this, and so we can see how these things shake out with our various data. So this is going to be our chart title. It's going to be age by performance. And there we go. And we can draw some pretty interesting conclusions here on our performance and based on age. So you can see the green is the kind of middle of the road. The red is kind of the twos. So you know the scale goes from 1 to 5, and you can see kind of as you get older, the probability, it looks like the probability of getting a higher rating goes up, certainly in the 4s, right? So very few 4s here, and it gets much bigger in our older employees. So that's something interesting we might want to know about. So let's go ahead and put that in our PowerPoint. So we're going to get rid of that border, Control C, go back to our PowerPoint here, and Control V, and include it here. So quite interesting here. Maybe let's do, Well, let's just stick with that. We'll stick with that for now. Um, second verse same as the first. This is basically how you put in charts and graphs, and it takes a while. I mean, it takes a while to understand what the data means, what the data says, and to come up with conclusions based on the data that you see. But as I mentioned before, I'm going to just call out a couple of things that we saw here. So I'm going to insert a shape, a circle, and we're going to circle these performance measures here that we called out in terms of high performers. Shape fill, I'm going to go no fill. Outline, we're going to do some bright red. Maybe make that a little bit heavier in weight so that we can draw our, so it draws our eye to it. Let's do that. And then when it comes to gender by job title, our actually what I want to do is reorganize. So I'm going to delete this because our job titles are a little bit goofy as we have them now. So the chief engineer actually comes after our senior engineer. So I'm going to drag this down and I'm going to delete this row. There we go. Now we can see kind of the hierarchy of how the organization is set up. So again, Control C, go back to our PowerPoint, Control V, and put our chart in here as well. And so what conclusions can we draw from this? It looks like, we looks like hire few women into engineering 1, maybe more in engineer 2, certainly over 20%. Engineer 3, we may have a bit of a retention issue going on. Senior engineers, though, we're keeping quite a few of them in relation to the rest of the pyramid. And then they struggle to make it to chief engineer. So we may call this senior engineer a bit of a choke point, as well as the engineering 3 positions, because we have fewer in this engineering 3 position than we do in the engineering 2. So we may call those out as kind of choke points in the organization. And we could type that all up and come up with kind of our recommendations based on that. So what would our recommendations be here? I think honestly with the data that we have in front of us, it would be to investigate a couple of things. It would be to investigate kind of the choke point, the retention issue that we may have at engineering 3, moving into moving into engineering 3 from engineering 2. And then also we may want to look at our performance ratings by age to see if there's a bit of an effect that we see when it comes to more the older the person is, the higher likelihood they are to get a higher performance rating. Again, we would have to tease out all of these things using more advanced kind of statistical analysis, but that could certainly be a recommendation or a next step that we could use in this particular presentation. So that's really kind of the putting it all together, inserting charts and graphs and PowerPoints. I'm not going to go through and type out all of this stuff because that would you don't need to watch me type, but just give you some ideas with this particular data set, some things to think about, things to look at, and we could spend days going through these data, trying to find nuggets that we could pull out and that might be interesting, and it really does help. One recommendation that I have is to do data analysis, but don't do it in a vacuum. So when you're doing data analysis, make sure that you get some qualitative data as well as quantitative data, in which case you may have, up front, you may have some background information that includes things like executive interviews or focus groups or things like that, where you could bring in some of these qualitative issues and then see if the data in fact does back those up. So I oftentimes like to pair the two, qualitative and quantitative data, because it tells a more holistic story. However, this course was focused simply on Excel skills, and this particular module in terms of putting it all together, linking the Excel to the PowerPoint and how to embed charts and graphs into the PowerPoint. But certainly a lot of things to dig into, and hope you took a lot away from this class. Thank you for your participation, and I wish you good luck, and we'll talk to you soon.